Most people prefer to keep their home tidy and clean. After all, cleanliness and hygiene are necessary for a healthy lifestyle. But there are a few homes out there that are so disgusting that no one in their right mind would want to live in them, and yet people do it anyway. In today's video, we'll show you some of the most horrifying homes that you wouldn't want to live in, even for free. So make sure to watch till the end and give this video a thumbs up. A fresh start. A woman named Lucy Ashton from Fulham, England had a mysterious elderly neighbour she knew very little about. The old lady had been living in an apartment opposite Ashley's and they'd been neighbours for over 20 years. The woman never invited anyone inside her home and eventually people stopped trying to go in, except for Lucy. The elderly lady apparently had no friends or family and she rarely stepped outside her flat. But one fateful day in 2016, the old woman somehow got locked out of her home. Lucy, being a good neighbour, helped her get back inside. But Lucy's jaw dropped after she entered the woman's apartment and looked around. There was human feces everywhere and the smell was terrible. Every surface visible to the eye was covered in grime and dirt. The furniture was torn to shreds and the bed was incredibly dirty, old, and had sunk in on itself. The old lady was probably sleeping on the floor, and instead of leaving this horrifying spectacle as it was, Lucy decided to get to work and scrubbed each and every corner until it was clean. She threw out all the grimy stuff, including the toilet seat. The old lady had mobility issues, she hadn't washed herself in 13 years, and Lucy gave her a bath too. She cleaned the flat as much as she could. She also sought help from her Facebook friends and explained the old woman's situation to them. She had a list of things needed for the flat, and the response she got was overwhelming. Friends and strangers sent her all the things she had requested. Some even came to help her clean. They cleaned everything from top to bottom, replaced the broken furniture, fixed her electronics, stocked her cupboards and fridge with food. They also replaced her old clothes with the ones donated by the community. It took them 60 long hours to complete the job. The flat looked good as new. This also encouraged the old woman to confide in the people who saved her home. She actually suffered from mental health issues and dementia. She had no friends or family who would look after her. However, because of Lucy's kindness, she finally gave up on her self-inflicted isolation and continued to see her for the next 2 years. They became good friends, but unfortunately the old lady passed away in 2018. But at least her last years were not spent in the depressing state she had been living in for decades. Diaper deluge. For the people working for a Florida-based crime scene cleaning company, it is their dream job. They actually do clean up crime scenes, but they're also frequently hired to clean up houses of hoarders. Their work isn't easy, but nothing could be worse than the house they got asked to clean in the beginning of 2021. They had to wear hazmat suits to go inside and start working. Inside, they were met with a mountain of used diapers and sanitary pads. The pile was so huge it was nearly touching the ceiling. And that wasn't all. There was also much more garbage all around the house. It was later revealed that the plumbing had broken, so the owner came up with this brilliant idea of using diapers and pads. They probably cost much more than a plumber could have. The place definitely looked terrible, but the workers did not judge the owner, as hoarding is a mental illness and the one suffering from it can't control it. TikTok trash. A TikToker whose username is Fat Anime Fanboy went viral online for having a terribly messy bedroom. No one in their right mind would want to go inside it. Well, the room used to look like an overflowing trash can. But in January 2022, Fanboy decided to tidy his bedroom, one handful at a time, like a challenge. So instead of cleaning the room completely, he began picking up a single handful of garbage every day and documented it on his TikTok feed. It took him weeks to clear out the piles of food wrappers, empty bottles and pizza boxes. But finally, on day 180, people actually got to see his floor. It'll probably take him years to tidy up, but at least he's trying, even if it is for TikTok. House of the Unknown Hoarder. These pictures of a nightmarishly dirty home were shared online back in 2018, but no one knows who lived in this place or how. But someone definitely did live here. The trash didn't appear out of nowhere, neither did the makeshift bed or the wear and tear on the furniture. There was also a note on the refrigerator with a recipe written on it, but from the mess it seemed that the owners only ate oranges. It's not a secret the owner of this house has no desire for cleanliness, but in one of the images a mop hidden amongst the trash can also be seen, but we can definitely bet that it was never used. Bud Bonanza. This man from Hanover, Pennsylvania was evicted from his home after he failed to pay rent. He abandoned the property and left it in a condition that probably gave the landlord nightmares. We've never seen this many beer cans and boxes. Seems like this guy was addicted to Bud Light. The piles of cans were so high that the man was actually made stepping stones from pizza boxes to move around the house. A neighbour revealed that the man had lived in the house for 17 years. Well, the amount of trash does add up. The video of this mess was actually filmed by the new landlord, who unfortunately bought the property without checking it from inside. He must have learned a lesson after walking into the house for the first time. Dirt and demolition. A YouTube handyman named Stanley Genadek decided to check out the filthiest property ever in 2017. It was so dirty that the government had condemned it and it was scheduled for demolition. The door was hardly open as the trash was piling up against it. It was everywhere. There were 4-feet-high mountains of garbage all around the place. A massive pile of used diapers was present in the back. There was human waste on the ceiling. No one could tell how it got there. The original homeowners had a really bad hoarding problem. It's a mystery how they managed to live amongst this junk for so long. The people who cleaned it out must have had a really hard time, but it had to be done, as recycling policies don't allow you to get rid of garbage with rubble. Garbage grotto. A woman named Jan Bush from Wales, UK chose quite an unconventional place to call home. A dream home as an actual World War II bunker. The bunker had no electricity, hot water or even a sewage disposal system, but Jan was a nature lover who wanted to live a quiet life in the countryside. But once she began living in it, things changed. With passing years, she developed a serious hoarding problem. Dirt and trash piled up inside until she couldn't even move freely. In order to resolve this problem, an elite team of extreme cleaners was called in. But even the cleaners thought it was just too much once they took a look at the blackened walls, stained bedding, and mountains of rotting garbage. It took them hours to clean the bunker, and it finally started looking more like a cozy home instead of a giant trash can. Fortunately, Jan was over her desire to live in the bunker and sold it to someone else. Rat attack. An elderly man living in Ashfield, UK was a loner who didn't have any friends or family to help him out. When the local council paid a visit to his property for an inspection in 2021, were left baffled by what they saw inside. The house had a massive rat infestation. The old man was ill and unable to take care of himself, let alone the property. This led to an accumulation of trash and clutter in the house. The rats were attracted by all this garbage and decided to make it their home. Every room in the house was nightmarishly filthy. There was also no electricity or running water in the kitchen. The authorities were amazed how the old man managed to survive in this hellhole for so long, but they did help him out by moving him to a local care facility and sold the house after cleaning it. Queen of Clean. Ori Katarina is a Finnish woman famous for her super cleaning videos. She actually goes to people's homes and deep cleans them for free. And this is the worst house she ever had to clean. When she went in to clean the bathroom, she was informed that it hadn't been touched in 5 long years. It was almost worse than a pigsty. The bedroom was overflowing with garbage, and even the bed had mounds of garbage on it. It didn't seem like the homeowner had slept in it for years. The floors were covered in dirty, worn-out clothes that were stuck to the tiles. The home belonged to a young lady in Switzerland who was suffering from chronic debilitating depression. Her condition worsened over time and she lost the will to even clean. She kept this mess a secret for 5 years until finally in 2022 she sought out Ori's help. House of Horrors. Police responded to a call in Wirral, UK from a concerned neighbour who heard a loud argument from a house. When the cops entered the house to search, they found out that the family living in it had 6 children, and they were all living in horrifying conditions. The house was littered with dirt, feces and dead rodents. There was a tall pile of trash in every single room. All sinks and even the bathtubs were full of garbage. There were mouse droppings everywhere. The officers were definitely shocked and called for help. The children were evacuated while the parents were arrested on charges of child neglect. Creature discomforts. Some hoarders don't hoard junk, instead they hoard animals. In 2022, police were called out to a house in California after someone reported an animal hoarding situation. When they went inside the house, they were met with a terrifying visual. The house was full of dogs and cats. There were actually more than 100 of them. Their refuse was covering every inch of the house and the stench was just unbearable. The army of pets belonged to an old woman who lived in this house. While cleaning the house, the crew discovered many suspicious skulls that looked like they belonged to cats in various parts of the house. Most of these poor animals were rescued and rehoused by authorities. Pigsty power couple. Leanne and Kenny Elliott are a husband and wife pro-cleaning team. They live in Plymouth, UK, and their specialty is crime scenes. A house they went to clean in 2019 is the most disgusting one they'd seen, according to the couple. It was called the filthiest house in Britain by newspapers. The cleaning couple found an overwhelming amount of cider bottles inside the house, only they weren't filled with cider. The 250 bottles were filled to the top with urine. The toilet was even worse, and even looking at it made them gag. They also came across an entire drawer overflowing with used cigarette butts. We can only commend the people for doing what is probably the most difficult job in the world. Skeller's son. An elderly woman named Rita Wolfenson from Brooklyn, New York, fell ill back in 2016. She was admitted to the hospital, and her sister-in-law, Josette, decided to grab some of her stuff from the house, but inside she found the most disgusting thing she'd ever seen. Rita was a chronic hoarder, but she was also blind. Therefore, she wasn't able to see the filth in her house. So when Rita was navigating through the piles of trash inside to find Rita's belongings, she discovered something that Rita had no idea was inside her house. In one of the upstairs bedrooms was a thin mattress, and on top of it was a real and very much intact human skeleton that was still wearing clothes. Josette sprinted out of the house and called the police. As it turns out, the skeleton belonged to Rita's son. The poor woman had no idea her son was dead and confused by what was happening. It's still unclear how the man died, and Rita claims she doesn't know anything. Floor of feces. Police were called to the house of a 62-year-old woman living in Ontario back in 2018. Once they got inside and saw what was in there, well, they were traumatized. The entire floor was covered in thick layers of feces and the smell was horrifying. The officer also heard several cats meowing from every corner. Once they went inside the bedroom, they came across an overwhelming number of cats. Their detritus was littered in every part of the property. They also found a dog inside a tiny cage. Other animals were also discovered in the house, and most of them were already dead. The owner believed she was helping the poor animals by providing them shelter. She was charged with animal cruelty, and the animals were taken to the vet for medical attention by the police. The surviving pets would definitely thank whomever called the police on her if they could. Ashy abode. This apartment from Houston, Texas was overflowing with used cigarette butts. It's as if the homeowner had no idea that something called an ashtray exists. From the floor to the computer, the butts were covering every surface in the property. The bedroom was filled with piles of junk food containers and beverage cans. The bathroom was even more disgusting, with feces on the floor and trash in the sink. The owner probably just gave up on the idea of living in a clean house. Those were some incredibly filthy homes. Tell us in the comments which one you think was the worst, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.